So Emma Pace, tell me your secret. How did you get on CBC, CTV, and the Toronto Sun?
You know what? I had a lot of great connections, and one of the excellent connections that I have that I've been able to leverage to help me get some more media is our mutual friend, which was how I am even here today, Mr. Tom Story.
That's awesome. Yeah. So for those of you watching this, if you watched the episode we did with Tom Story a couple weeks ago, we talked heavily about YouTube strategy, how he's been featured on news outlets. And what's really cool about the Prime People podcast is it brings me in proximity with other amazing people. Emma had been on my radar previously. We interacted a little bit. Tom's like, you got to get her on your show. Sent out the bad signal. She responded very, very quickly. So I figured we would just chop it up. I'm super curious to see what you're building and kind of the tactics behind it. So give us a rundown, a bit of your background and what it is you do exactly.
Totally. So I started my career, or the bulk of my career, when I was about 6 months in, with a company called Zoocasa. Which was all online lead generation, right? It was kind of like that era of condos.ca. Now you have House Sigma, which is probably like the biggest search website, but it was kind of like the search websites that converted into brokerage. So it's like really.
Was Zoocasa the like Zillow in Canada where they would give you home values?
Totally. Yeah. So it was actually owned by Rogers.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
And then they were doing like, it was kind of like Zillow, like anyone could kind of sign up for it. And then there was no standardization of like service, and you know how agents are. It's like, the service is all over the place. So, I don't know for sure, but I'm fairly certain that Rogers was just kind of like, we're in telecommunications, we're not in real estate. So let's sell these assets. And so I had started with my mentor at the time, who is still my mentor and has turned into my friend, Lauren Haw, who had teamed up a small team, which was called Zoocasa because we had the assets at the time, but we were actually at Keller Williams when I started. So there was like 5 of us, I think.
So you bought Zoocasa essentially from Rogers?
She bought Zoocasa. Yeah, she paired with a couple investors, bought everything, the website,
database, email list, all that fun stuff.
Everything, yeah. And then even, from an employee perspective, they had like an in-house ISA department. So we were rocking and rolling right away. But my kind of thought process was like, dude, I'm freaking broke. I have no money for marketing. I know nothing about marketing. So I think I'm just going to pair up with somebody who has the leads, right? Yep. And then what I'll do is I'll figure out how to speak with people on the phone. And I had done like outbound credit card sales and stuff previously. And like I had worked at call centers and stuff. So I've been on the phones. I'm like pretty comfortable with it. And what I did was I figured out the kind of back half of the transaction, because I figured like I don't have any money for marketing. If I'm going to burn some leads, I'm better off burning somebody else's leads than my own to try and figure out how to make this happen. Even if it means that I'm going to be contributing a significant portion of my splits, I just wanted to like learn how to do it and get some deals under my belt. And then I did that. And then I realized, okay, I know how to do the back half. I've done, quite a few transactions now. Let me learn how to do the marketing thing and get the leads so that I can stop paying the splits. And I did that, and I still stayed with them because the splits for your personal business was great. And and then actually coming full circle to your first question, how did I end up getting on some of the media? We were heavily integrated in the media at that point in time. And so because I was the top sales rep there, they would want to give me at bats because it made them look good. And quite frankly, there weren't very many agents that felt comfortable. Yeah. And I was like, 26, 27, stupid at the time. I'm like, just plaster my face everywhere. Let's see how it works. And you know what I mean? And to be honest, it's a skill set that has contributed positively to, brand recognition, awareness, and ultimately business.
Yeah, it makes a difference. Like for the consumers out there, when they see those taglines, right? The CBC, CTV, Toronto Sun, it does trigger a certain, okay, she probably knows what she's talking about. Yep. We know in our industry, there's a lot of people that buy a lot of the accreditations, and they do pay for play. There's earned media and then there's paid media. Yep. That would be an example of earned media. I do think we're moving into a world, and I think this is where we'll get into the weeds in this conversation a bit, where you can actually, you use earned media, you'll have some paid media, but building your own platform and you becoming the source of information and the ecosystem for your people, to me, is the future, right? Like Tom's doing it, how he's doing it, we're doing it, you're doing it, how you're doing it. So give me an idea of like, what does the Emma Pace ecosystem look like, and what's your vision for what you're creating?
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold. So I have a small team. There's 7 of us now. And that was kind of like, I think that when you're an individual agent, it seems like the natural step or like next progression. It's like, okay, well, I should like pass along my, I should pass along my skill sets to other people to help kind of leverage my time, buy my time back, et cetera, et cetera. And so I will definitely continue to run a small team where it's like one-on-one training, we do call review, we do role playing, team trainings, reviewing the data, et cetera, et cetera. So
what's your cadence? I'm so curious about this stuff too. Like how often you guys role play? How often you guys train?
So full team meetings are Tuesday,
okay.
And our team meetings are typically structured in a way where we do like team member call out, whoever represented our core value. So like whoever really demonstrated one of our core values in the last week definitely has to get recognized so that we're starting every meeting off on like a positive note. And then what we'll do is usually some housekeeping, talk about deals happen, talk about maybe objections and stuff that we had pop up. And then we will typically do call review on Tuesdays and then set an alternative role play session throughout the week. But I find the best part of our training is to sit down and to like listen to our calls and say, we're either converting leads at the highest level, we're great with the intro, but we're getting stuck at this objection, or the market has changed as a result of X, Y, and Z, and now it's popping up more commonly in our conversations, et cetera, et cetera.
That's pretty interesting. So again, I'm going to pause. I'm going to keep jumping in because I'm seeing little nuggets of your previous skill set, being comfortable on the phones, you translating that to your team. But for the people watching this that maybe aren't in real estate, I think something where people miss the mark is they don't practice the thing they want to get good at. Like Kobe became Kobe because he sucked. So he looked at people that were better than him. He trained 3 times more than them, passed them, but then kept training. I love that. How important has that been to your growth? Like just staying consistent?
It's everything, because it's funny when you talk to, I think, most team leaders and you talk about like, what do you train on? I listened to this Alex Hormozy podcast a little while ago, and it kind of put the words in my mouth for what I was thinking. Like I couldn't figure out how to say the concept, but the concept was pushing down the first domino first to make sure that everything happens in a sequential order. And so what I think one problem that a lot of agents or just business people have in general is like they go and they say, I want to get better at running comps. Like I'm not very good at comping out properties right now. So I'm going to like practice and spend all of my time comping out properties to make sure that like when I give the advice, I feel comfortable in the advice that I'm giving. But I'm like, but who are you giving this advice to? And they're like, no one, I don't have any clients. And I'm like, then we're pushing down. If we have this many dominoes, you're starting to push from here when really you should be pushing here. And as long as you are pushing here, you have enough velocity that like, you're still going to get a deal at the end of the day. I hope your comps are good, but don't focus on the last domino if you can't figure out how to press the first one first. And so for me, the bulk of our training is on prospecting skill sets, because I think if you have enough clients in the pipeline, regardless of your skill set on the back end, you're going to get a deal done. You're going to make.
Well, yeah. And action begets action, right? Like everybody, it's so funny you say that, because as I talk to team leaders, or I've coached newer agents, or they come into the brokerage and they're like, what do you want? They're like, well, I want signs all over Sunningdale, because then all of a sudden I'm going to have all of the business. I'm like, the for sale signs are a latent indicator of success. The way to get the signs are to actually show up on a consistent basis, work your database, pick up the phone. And I agree with you. We're actually in the prospecting business. Even if I pick up a listing, now my job is to prospect for a buyer, and that buyer is going to come from an agent, or it's going to come from the actual open market. So like, how are you doing the activities? And I do think you feel like you take a bit of a sports-like mentality to the game of real estate versus treating it like a business, right? So like,
totally.
Do you use that from your background, or how do you?
I mean, I played competitive hockey for a fairly high level for my entire life. And so when I look at it, and even running a team, you're like, okay, well, I need to cultivate this team, and like, who is the best right winger, and who, where do they fit in with our potential client base? So like, if a lead comes through and we have a conversation, you're like, wow, this person is, there's typically, depending on whatever market you're in, London, the 99% of my business is still in Toronto. And I came to London thinking that I was going to expand the team in London. And as a result of removing myself physically, it's actually skyrocketed my business in Toronto because I've had to hire and delegate for things that I was willing to kind of compromise and be flexible on based on my my actual, physical location.
Yeah.
And so it was, I kind of figured that would happen, but it's one of these things until you try it, you don't really know. And so I can confidently say, like, my business, when I removed myself physically and I had to force myself to like pay people to do this and that and whatever, it went up like crazy. Now I lost my train of thought, but
no, I was gonna say this. Like, I mean, literally tracking with exactly with what you're saying, because I said to my wife, we're gonna go away for a little bit. And I actually find that I get more done when I'm with her in one spot, because I'm probably like you, where if I'm in proximity, don't worry, I'll go put that directional sign. Don't worry, I'll go open the door. No, I got to go talk to the client. I have to go do this. I have to go do that. Where a lot of my clients now understand that Justin's best and highest use of the time isn't even updating you on what's happening with your property. Because if I spend all of my time just updating you as to what's happening with the property, I'm not doing the activities. And the only two things I should be doing is creating content and relationship building, because that is what brings in the actual transactions, then obviously negotiate the deal. But I think it's something a lot of people have a hard time understanding. And, problems you get when you enter any business in the beginning end up being nothing burgers a couple of years down the road. But every stage makes you feel like, oh my gosh, like I can't possibly let this piece go. Walk me through a few stages that you had through real estate where you had aha moments where you're like, maybe I don't need to open that door or show up at that inspection or whatever.
So I think I've always been a person who I would hear the word leverage, right? Early in my career, I'm like, everyone keeps saying this word leverage. And I'm like, it sounds sexy. It sounds cool. Like, I kind of want some of it. What does it mean? And so then I realized, I'm like, okay, well, I want to look at like, what is the next step and what's the easiest thing that I can do to take off my plate, right? So doing something like a task audit, which is like, it's so boring, but it is so helpful, where, for a week, every 15 minutes, you write down exactly what you were doing. And then you go through and you say, okay, I'm going to rank them by the things that I'm very good at and I enjoy doing. I'm going to highlight those. Those are the things that I should keep on my plate. What are the things that I'm doing that I actually suck at and I really don't like doing? Let me get those things off my plate, because I'm not good at them anyways. And so I've kind of always had a mentality of looking at that, like, I'm actually not very good at these things. Somebody else is going to be way better at this. So let me focus on that. So the thing was, I didn't know how to market. I had no idea. I knew how to be on the phones. So I did that. And then after, I was like, I'm going to gain that skill set now. And then when I marketed, what I realized, I was like, wow, I have enough leads coming in. My highest and best use is being like on appointments with clients. And so I know that I can teach somebody else how to be on the phones, because I've been on the phones for so long. And so now I'm like, okay, I'm going to hire an ISA on my behalf to call and just book the appointment so I can sit on the appointments. And then I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to, it doesn't make sense for me to go to these showings, but there's another agent out there that loves going on showings. And they don't like talking to clients. They don't like prospecting, which is probably like most agents are like, I love looking at houses. So then I hired somebody to do my showings. Right. And then I would just sit here and I would just do client appointments. And then I got way better at the appointments. And I'm like, okay, well, now my whole system is pretty dialed. It's like, I have someone calling. Can I duplicate that so that I can bring on another agent and I'll teach them how to do the appointments? And then now I have like, all my showing protocol for my guy, because I had to teach him how to do that. And it's like, we had all of these systems that we built slowly. But I think people get too overwhelmed and they're like, I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. And it's like, just figure out the one thing that you need to do next. Document the hell out of it as you do it. It's not going to be good the first time you document it, by the way. It's going to suck. And then you're going to go back to it the second time and be like, at least we don't have to start from scratch. We'll just fix this and we'll fix this. And this wasn't a good idea, so we'll change that. And we're good on round 2. And then when we come back on round 3, you're like, that wasn't a good idea. We'll change that again. Yeah,
it's funny you say that. With like standard operating procedures, people think it's such a fancy word.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people about this before, and they're like, how do you get started with a standard operating procedure? I mean, you open a Google Word doc, which is free, and you write standard operating procedure, and then you write buyer showing, and then step 1.
Yeah.
Book the appointment. Step 2, like it's the most boring thing ever. And then as we keep reviewing the SOP, we do it, probably bi-yearly or a yearly, like for like big chunk stuff.
Yeah.
You're always going back and be like, oh, we definitely don't do that anymore. Like
Yeah.
our onboarding document here, we definitely don't do these items anymore. And that is business, right? You're never going to be like, okay, I'm done now. Everything's perfect, because the whole market shifts, the interest rates go up, and all of a sudden the way you talk to a buyer changes, right? So how have you adapted amidst different shifts in markets and your business?
Yeah. And I think, well, even like if we talk about COVID, right? I used to do all of my buyer consultations in person, and they would always be at Starbucks. Like that's what I was taught to do at the beginning of my career. That was our Zoocasa SOP. Like someone sends through a property viewing request and they want to go see this property, go meet them. But before you meet them for a coffee, walk them through the procedure, just so you can build the rapport and they're not kind of like all distracted while they're walking through the property.
Sure.
And then COVID hits and everyone's like, oh my, like I'm never going to be able to do a buyer consultation. I was like, this is the best thing ever. I've wanted to do it virtually, but I just didn't have the confidence to do it. Yeah. And then I changed all of my protocols for client onboarding to only doing it on Zoom, which is actually much more effective because now I have supporting documentation and there isn't like 1,000 things happening. The most awkward is like you show up downtown Toronto, you just spent 2 hours trying to get to wherever you got to go, find parking, et cetera, et cetera. You show up to a Starbucks, you're hoping to, have a coffee and sit down for 45 minutes before you go see the condo. And guess what? There's no friggin' where to sit. So then the clients are like, it's all awkward, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, this is what we do on Zoom. This is how we book it over the phone. This is the email that goes out after we book it over the phone that has a video in it. Then they show up on Zoom. Here's how we do the buyer consultation. We're able to record them for standard operating procedures and training videos for new agents. And it's like we have an hour of undivided attention to just absolutely showcase our systems, our processes, and how we get, our clients' results. And they're like, this is amazing. And then we book the showings. And so things like that over time where you kind of have these ideas and you're like, I don't know if it's going to work. You kind of just have to try it. Yeah. There is no way for you to understand if something's going to work. Like another example would be when I hired my first showing specialist, I would always bring him on the Zoom call, the buyer consultation. Right. And then I'm like, oh, it's kind of awkward because I feel like I'm always talking and they're not talking. And so I'm like, I don't know if this is kind of making them feel undermined. I'm having them on there because I think it's a good thing to do as part of the process of rapport building and letting the clients get to know the team. But then I thought about it. I'm like, I kind of feel bad for my guy because he doesn't really say a whole heck of a lot because I'm running the appointment and I would never want him to feel undermined. Yeah. And then what we would do is we would both show up to the first showing so they could meet us. And then I would try and do a handoff. So I'm like, okay, Chase is going to kind of take the showings from here. And the clients were like, huh? Like, this is kind of weird, even though I thought it was the best practice. So I dropped him off of the buyer consultations. Interesting. And I just send the clients to go meet him now. But I boost him up as much as I possibly can in the buyer consultation. I'm like, he's not here right now because he's on showings.
Yeah.
And this is what you're going to get. This is our team. This is how we work. And so what I had to do was I just changed the words that I said in the script in my buyer consultation. And by focusing on that one thing, which was maybe took me like an hour and a half. It took me like 10 weeks to figure out that I needed to spend 1 hour on this thing. And I spent the 1 hour on the thing and it bought me back. It's 200-300 hours at least by now. And I don't have to drive anywhere. I don't have to go anywhere. And now all of my clients immediately level up his authority and just see him. Like, he is my equal. It shouldn't be seen as me here and him here. And like, you're meeting my underling. Like, that's not the case. This guy kills it at showings. So even those kind of like small tweaks within your business, something as small as, what I say on the call or how I script this one thing in the call could be the thing that buys you back 1,000 hours.
Yeah. Well, if you're not doing the thing, you'll never figure that out, right? Like you're doing the thing and then you're reviewing the process and saying, how could I improve? I mean, that's the core of everything you're explaining. Yeah. And, how you interact with clients. I find it was the same thing with me where when we were sending agents to do showings and, I was explaining to them, like, you hire me for my market intelligence, my deal flow, my network, and I can amplify everything that you do. That's mainly why you hire me. Just like if you hired a landscaper to landscape your backyard, the landscaper guy that owns the company isn't necessarily the one dropping off the dirt or picking up the shovel or moving the one tree. But if you don't explain it to people, they're going to come up with their own expectation of the process. And if it's not in line with what you offer, then you shouldn't be working together to begin with. Right. And I think that's a really nice approach. And I love that you're building it that way. I'm going to shift gears a little bit now, go into the media side of things. So we talked about earned media. We talked about marketing. Obviously, you got a marketing brain on the phones with your background. Where do you think people's best time is spent these days on, say, social media or building thought leadership in spaces? Is it Threads? Is it Instagram? What's working for you? What's not? Obviously, Tom Story's the YouTube guy, but what do you think?
I think it's a tough question to answer on the general public, especially if we're specifically talking about, are we talking about real estate agents, like adding value to real estate agents right now? Or are we just,
I'm thinking like real estate agents and entrepreneurs. Put it in the comments. Actually, if you're here watching this video, if you're a real estate agent, entrepreneur, you own a business, Roger Horvath, actually, he's here. He is the flying realtor, great insights, SOPs and checkouts, checklists, started in aviation, but works so many industries. Great way to scale up. He's actually a helicopter pilot for Air Orange in London on my commercial team. Good dude. But yeah, for anybody that owns a coffee shop or they feel like they need to do everything, but they're paralyzed. How do you view, I guess, social media and marketing to be effective?
I mean, I think that for me, Instagram Reels has been super valuable. But what I've noticed working with so many agents specifically is there are a lot of people that are just not comfortable. Like there are a lot of people that are not comfortable putting their face out on Instagram. And so for you or I, we could say, okay, everyone should do this, this, and this. But the truth is that not everyone has the same comfort level with being as exposed as we are or being as consistent. And so if there's one little hack to be able to, like, I guess from a marketing perspective that I've seen help people get comfortable with that, it is doing internal videos for your existing pipeline. So like, let's say you have Facebook leads coming in for your business. This could be any business, whatever, sales, coaching, maybe not a coffee shop necessarily, because you're probably not running Facebook ads for a coffee shop. But if you want to get comfortable being on video, you should just start internally with just the people that you have in your pipeline, because it's not public. It's not scary. It's like me making a one-on-one video for you and being like, okay, it wasn't that bad. Or, ooh, I actually had someone who like responded positively. And so I actually think that would be my quick tip or quick hack is like, if you're not comfortable going in, head first and, making a bunch of reels and posting them on Instagram, even though I necessarily think that that's a great way for you to do it. I think that you just start one bite at a time, make one video for one person in your pipeline, see if you can get a good response out of it. It will make you feel more comfortable, and then you can kind of scale from there.
That's a great tactical piece of advice, because even doing it to the Facebook leads, they're not going to expect it. Your conversion rates are probably going to go up. Speaking of which, I guess, what are some tips that you can give people that deal with cold leads and say Facebook leads don't work? What would your response be to that?
I'd laugh. I would say you don't know how to work them. It's not that they don't work. You don't know how to work them appropriately is the mentality that you should have. Because if you think that they don't work, like I can tell you right, our last 5 deals that our team has written they've come directly from Facebook. Actually, sorry, one was realtor.ca.
Sure.
But if you're talking online leads and taking like realtor.ca, Facebook, et cetera, all into consideration, that's the bulk of our business. And that was how I built the foundation of my business. And I think it's learning how to work them is the quickest hack to getting past the 3-year mark. Because like you and I both know in real estate, if you get past the 3-year mark, you're good.
Yeah.
But that is really the time frame that you're up against, is like, I just got to pass 3 years. If I don't get past the 3 years, I am majority of people. If I get past that 3-year, hurdle, I'm good. And so if you want to get past the 3-year hurdle, my quickest hack, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm just saying it's like the quickest hack to do it, is to be able to work the phones. Even if this happens to be like joining a team or whatever, learn how to convert a cold audience to build the foundation of your business. And that is where your repeat and referral business is going to come from. And that's how it gets easier over time. And so when everyone looks at you and I, and they're like, well, it's easy for you to say because you have this massive network and you got repeat and referral coming through. I didn't know one person who could buy or sell real estate when I started. Mm-hmm. I've been doing this for like 10 years. I started building a foundation of my business with cold audience, and it took me a lot longer to figure out how to do that. But all of those people have turned into repeat business, referral business. Like that's where I got my repeat and referral business from. And so you got to learn either how to get the leads, and you can learn how to, you can pay somebody else for it, like a third party media company. You can learn how to run your own, or you can join a team that can give you leads. Like there's ways to do it, paid, or it's all paid somehow on the front end or on the back end.
Yeah.
And then you got to learn how to talk to them on the phone, and what emails to send. And quite frankly, you don't even necessarily have to be that good, because most people just give up right away.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I was going to go there next in terms of, they do the initial outreach. Oh, the Facebook leads didn't respond, or, they responded, they're not in the market. I'm like, no, you got to follow up like 6 to 9 times, and you have to have a system to do that.
Yeah.
Average conversation to conversion. What are you seeing out there?
So my expectations are, if I get a bundle of 100 leads that come in, my ISA, I would expect on any given month, 15 to 20% of those, so 15 to 20 of those leads would get transferred across to my team in some capacity. Of those are like ready to go right away and to have appointments, and some of them we've had conversations with. They're maybe not quite ready to go and transact in the next 90 days, but they should be ready and able to transact within the next 6 to 12 months. And we're having a conversation as to like why they don't have the ability. So I would say shorter term lead conversion, like 6 months or less, because you also kind of have to look at it on a time horizon. You should be like 2 to 3% with online leads.
Yeah.
If you do a decent amount of follow-up.
Yeah. And I think if you're following up with people and a pattern, or you say you follow up with 50 people a week, which is 10 people a day, which is not a lot of people, all of a sudden, you're dealing with 200 people a month. Those you're doing 3-4 client appointments and meetings, and it compounds, and, you could do 50 people a day. And then all of a sudden those numbers just skyrocket. But unless you push the first domino, like you said, the rest of the dominoes don't actually happen. And I think newer agents, especially people that aren't used to working a system like that, they get call reluctance. They get scared that, what if they tell me that they don't like me? Or like, what if you get the Facebook lead that's like, I have no idea why you're calling me. You're like, you filled out my form, sir. And they're like, don't ever call me again. And they hang up, right? Like,
here's the other thing too. When you haven't run, like I've run the front end and the back end, so I kind of understand the process. If you've never done it, then you don't have a clear expectation for the process. And if you've only worked with repeat or referral, and you're expecting that the client or like buying cycle or sales cycle is going to be the same, and that your expectation is repeat and referral, you have set yourself the wrong expectation. So therefore, there is no way for you to have a great experience. You're only setting yourself up for disappointment.
For sure.
Now, when it comes to Facebook leads, people also, or online leads just in general, people want the most leads for the least amount of money. Like that's typically what they want, but they want the most leads for the least amount of money, which means that you're going to have the least qualified leads. If you really wanted to just put money in the machine and get a qualified lead through Facebook, you absolutely could do it. You could add as much friction as possible in your marketing process, where it's like they sign up for this thing, and then they have to watch this video. And then if they watch this video, they fill out this form, and it's like, you're only going to get one lead for like $150, but that person has jumped through 1,000 hoops to get to you. So they're extremely qualified. But if you ask somebody, hey, I want Facebook leads. Well, I want leads for $5. Well, leads for $5 are extremely unqualified, and you have to sift through 100 of them to get 2 or 3 deals.
Yeah.
But if you want to spend $150 a lead to get an appointment, they'll be extremely qualified. They're just way more expensive.
Yeah. And I think that's the game that it's always been played in marketing. It used to be Google SEO, then it was Facebook ads, and obviously Instagram came around and everything too. And like good real estate agents do, we tend to ruin everything. Just like I'm sure we're all going to ruin Threads. It's great for the first week and a half, 2 weeks, but who knows where that's going. What are your thoughts on Threads and the new?
I honestly haven't messed around with it too much. I have just been so swamped over this last week. Was in Toronto last week, heading to LA for a mastermind next week, so I haven't even really dived in too heavily. But I would be curious to know your thoughts and how I can implement it as quickly as possible.
Well, I think for myself, anyways, like I was getting overwhelmed with feeling monetized on whatever platform I was going on, right? Like I've tried, and I was a culprit of this a year ago, where I would have a piece of content like this podcast and I repurpose it across LinkedIn and TikTok and Instagram and everything too. But I also started to notice like my audiences on all my platforms. I'm like, well, if I'm me and I see the same piece of content on LinkedIn as TikTok, as Instagram, as Threads, why do I need to follow Justin on all these different platforms? I'm just going to pick one. So when Threads launched, I think what they did was twofold. One, they began the app clone wars, meaning I don't think it's a new social media platform. I think it's a Facebook feature that they packaged as an app. So it's a standalone product, because if it just got launched in Facebook, it would disappear and it would just be too messy. No one would use it. So I think that was genius. But I also think like YouTube could turn around tomorrow and decide that we're also doing a version of Threads or Twitter, launch an app, and all of a sudden their entire user base can communicate via text. This was the unlock for me. What it made me realize was how I want to show up. So YouTube is my video, long form video platform. Audio would be obviously my podcasts. Instagram for me is very visual and video, but like cinematic, high quality. I enjoy the visual presentation of Instagram personally. I don't like the ads. I don't like a lot of the text over image. That's just for me. So in my mind, I'm like, when I want to have conversations with my Instagram fam, Threads is a great place to do that. And I'm trying to make it text only, because I'm starting to notice people just repurposing. And I'm like, to me, it devalues me following them on that platform. Twitter and LinkedIn, commercial real estate thought leadership. So like, it kind of gave me an aha moment of like, here's the ecosystem of platforms. I don't love showing up on TikTok, so I'm probably not going to devote a lot of time there, but it gave me clarity on how I'm going to show up in different places. But that's just my kind of high level thoughts. You got time on an airplane though, so you could probably play around.
I know, and I'm going to mess with it. I mean, I think for me, it's funny because I'm staring at this. I have a big whiteboard on the other side of my computer here. And it says, it's just a reminder for me. It says, are you working on something that is making you money or building for your future vision? If you're not, you're wasting your time. You need to stop. That's like, and so for me, I'm like, I've been so dialed in on that message that I have in front of me, that I have been so dialed in on working on the things that are either making me money or building for my future business, that I'm like, I could get distracted and try this thing out, but I'm just going to do it when I have like a little bit of extra time. Cause right now I'm dialed and I feel like I'm on the right track. And so, when I have time on the airplane, I'm either gonna build something else for this phone training program that I have coming, or I might mess around with Threads. We'll see how it goes.
I like it. You ever see the movie The Predator from like back in the day?
No.
Okay. Well, he's got a grappling hook on one shoulder and a little like laser cannon on the other. And I think about my life the same way. I'm like, if it's a net positive, give me more. If it's a net negative, blow it apart. And I don't want to see it in my world. I love that mentality. Actually, somebody that's very good at that is my girl, Christina Smallhorn, who's here. Hi, Christina. Nice to see you. Has one of the best real estate YouTube channels out there. And she's just very laser focused on what she does. And I think that's a great way to segue to the rapid fire round of questions before I get you out of here. So I got a couple questions I ask my guests out of curiosity. I always love hearing the answers. Number one, what would you tell the early self of you, like if you met yourself tomorrow and you were like just getting started, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Invest more money in yourself earlier in your career.
Yeah, I've never seen somebody invest in themselves that didn't get a return on that. Number two, how has failure shaped your life?
Probably best thing that's ever happened to me, because it's proven to me that the more action you take, the more failures you have, but the more action you take, the more success you'll have as well.
There's absolutely no such thing as failure. Actually, two more questions. I said three, but I'm going to make it four. What are you learning right now that excites you?
I am in a amazing, extremely expensive marketing mastermind, and I am the absolutely least experienced person in the room. And we're specifically going down the AI path. And so I have learned so much about AI in the last 30 days that my mind is like absolutely blown. And that is, if you're not on that wave yet, get there.
No, I'm not actually a real person. This is Justin GPT. I did the whole interview using AI. Who knows where it's going? Go. I like that answer. And the most important question, you made time for my audience. How could we serve you? Is there somewhere we could send people? Is a podcast we're listening to, whatever?
You know what? I'm actually launching my podcast in the next couple weeks here. So what I would recommend is Instagram is the best way to find me. Pace of Base is my handle. And the podcast is called Pipeline Profits. And it is a discussion about the best practices of sales and marketing for real estate agents. So if you're a real estate agent and you want some tips and tricks on kind of what we're doing internally with our systems or what our guests are doing, we're just talking about how we can make our businesses better as the future of technology advances.
I appreciate that very much. If you enjoy the episode, make sure to go connect with her. Send her an actual DM. That's how you really connect with people. And love that she made time for our audience. If you can share this episode out with somebody you think would get value from it, let us know. We're on all platforms. Make sure to hit subscribe and notifications so you don't miss the future guests. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks again, Emma.
Thanks.